the podcast. I'm Pete Wright. I'm here with Andy Nelson.
Hey, everybody.
And this is a podcast about podcasting from True Story FM. And today we're talking about Wilford Brimley.
Wilford Brimley.
We're actually not talking specifically about Wilford Brimley, but we found this article. It was a wonderful piece from writer Tom Webster at Sounds Profitable. And it reminds me, I think we might have sent this to each other because it reminds me a while back, maybe 2 years ago, less than a year, when I turned 50, I called you and I said, I think we need to do more I'm feeling like an old person and we need to do more podcasts for old people. And I think you said something like, I'm not there yet, man.
Yeah, give me time.
So it's been a little time. And then we come across this article, and the pitch on the article was that at the time of writing, Tom Cruise was 5 years older than Wilford Brimley was when he was in Cocoon.
Yeah.
And Wilford Brimley seemed real old in Cocoon.
Well, yeah. I mean, it was about a bunch of senior citizens who get healed or made young again by coming in contact with these aliens. Yeah.
Yeah. And we are not, I don't feel Cocoon ready, is what I'm saying.
No. Yeah. I don't either.
So,
and I think that was the point, is like that this is this person who probably wasn't as old as we thought he was, but they're portraying him to be this older man. But Tom Cruise, like, this is the same age. What's going on? So
this article then connects us back to demographics. How does this connect to demographics, Andy?
Well, the whole idea of, if Tom Cruise is older than Wilford Brimley was when he made Cocoon, who are we targeting when we talk about targeting a particular demographic? And the whole idea of this article is like, how are demographics working anymore? Like, there was this MTV generation that people were targeting in the 80s and 90s. That generation is now in their 50s. So how are you marketing to them now? And that's the whole thing, is like, we're not necessarily marketing to Wilford Brimley's. We're marketing to the Tom Cruises that are this age, or are we marketing to just a variety of different people that happen to be this age? Like, there's this group of people that sometimes get left out when they think about demographics in this. There's always this 18 to 34-year-old demographic window that people tend to talk about, but they're kind of missing the boat on actually realizing that there is huge opportunity to be targeting people in the 25 to 54 age group, 55 and older. Like, there are these groups that are listening to podcasts that just aren't necessarily getting targeted or marketed to.
Well, this was the thing that I think was illuminating, that when you look at, first of all, let's look at 18 to 34, right? Because everybody thinks that, 18 to 34, they're just on their screens all the time, and they're looking at TikTok. They get all their news from TikTok. And to some extent, that's true. But when you look at comparing television, AM, FM radio, and podcasts, they're all in the ballpark for 18 to 34-year-olds. 50% report getting their information from podcasts. AM, FM radio, 59%. TV, 54%. So it's not like either of those are kind of wildly out of the running from each other. For 35 to 54%, according to the study, AM, FM radio is still very, very high at 71%, TV at 61%, and podcasts at 39%. Age 55 and over, 74% television, 68% AM, FM radio, and 14% podcasting. That I think is interesting to me. The fact that it doesn't include social media for entertainment, it doesn't include YouTube, it doesn't include TikTok and Instagram, I think is a bit of a disservice to the results, because I think those are non-trivial. But at least compared to mainstream media channels, podcasting's right in the running, and really an open field for older people who haven't been introduced to it yet.
I think that's a key part of it, is that there is growth here, there is interest here. And I mean, yes, there are some statistics that the 55 and older age group represents a smaller portion of podcast listeners, but that's just because they're not being reached out to.
Mm-hmm.
And there are plenty of people to actually start creating these podcasts for, target these older audiences, and find people who can really jump onto these things and really find that they are being talked to and given a chance to have shows that they're interested in.
So what does that mean? What are the shows like? What would you do? What are you thinking about when you're thinking about potentially engaging a new demographic? Can you do it with your existing shows? To me, that's like one of the most practical kind of applications of thinking about this, right? It's easier for me to think about because I'm aging into that demographic. Like it's easier to think like, what would I be interested in? Like I'm still interested in the same stuff. I'm interested in movies and music and television and pop culture. I like that's the thing that I struggle with, and why I think this argument that demographics, like traditional groupings of demographics, are challenging. I am the MTV generation, right? I was there first, right? And I'm still interested in those same things. I'm still interested in those same sort of pop culture kind of movements, and so it's hard for me to think about how I would change any of my existing podcasting because I'm already targeting myself. It's not like suddenly I want to take out an ad in the AARP magazine.
No, and I think when you think about as you're getting older, ideally you've been moving your life into a place where you're more financially stable, you have more interests, you're able to focus more on some particulars in your life. So perhaps having shows that are about people who are 55 and older, making their lives richer, better, more interesting. Like what things can you be tapping into with those with that group of people,
And consider YouTube and Spotify are having a huge role in that impact or in that growth. I look at there's a fellow by the name of Steve Dotto, Dotto Tech, DOTTOTECH. He has a YouTube channel, and I believe he has a podcast too. One of the things I like so much about him, he's in this 55 and over camp, and he has dedicated his entire mission to talking to people like him, to people in that demographic, and he's growing like gangbusters. Like he's incredibly successful at building these. Like, how do you transfer your business? How do you find productivity with technology? How do you learn how to use these tools that may seem foreign to you if you weren't born into a world where these things already existed? And that's an example of a nice hard pivot in favor of a demographic that is undersaturated with this kind of content, because it's not like they don't need it, right? It's not like just because you're over 55, you don't need to know how to use these tools to live your life, to build a business, to do these sorts of things. Or in our case, we make a lot of entertainment podcasts. It's not like you're less interested in movies, science fiction, fantasy, just because you're a year or two older, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, it's like if you have something existing, how can you make shifts within it to reach that audience? And if you're making something new, what is something that can tap into that audience so that it's speaking to them and something that they're interested in listening to?
Right. So I do think there is something to thinking in terms of traditional marketing, right, in terms of building your target audience. And if you do think about where these people are and think about using some of these people are on Facebook, right? That's the joke now, is that all the grandparents are on Facebook, but the kids have left. Well, that actually is a great opportunity for some of these platforms that we may see shifting their demographic profile to start thinking about where you might target a drip ad campaign to try to build an audience of people who might not have heard you in Facebook groups who are reporting that they're a little bit older. Maybe that's a great place to start seeding your podcast ideas in Facebook, where it's parents and grandparents now keeping up with the kids' pictures.
Just reaching out to those different groups. And then as far as the advertising, like finding those different things, doing live reads of ads, kind of in the Walter Cronkite style, where you're really kind of talking about something like that's going to speak to them probably much more than just throwing some dynamic ad in that doesn't relate at all to them.
Right.
Or
yeah.
most listeners, honestly.
Yeah, right. And because agencies aren't paying attention to this demographic, and agencies are made up of young professionals who don't have the experience yet to understand that there's an untapped market here. And so I think as if you're a podcaster who's in this demographic, be considerate of that. You can it is much easier to teach someone who isn't familiar with podcasting how to use a podcast app and enjoy podcasts than it is to, and I like this from the article, than it is to find a young person and become their 6th or 8th or 15th favorite podcast, right?
Exactly.
It's breaking into, I looked in my Pocket Cast, I follow 97 shows.
Ooh, wow.
Yeah. Well, of course, a lot of 35 of those are our shows, right? Because I like to make sure I know when an episode is released.
Exactly. Yeah.
But of the rest of those shows, they're shows that I've subscribed to, that some of them I've listened to all the episodes, and I still listen to them again when I go to sleep. Some of them are new current shows, but to some degree, that's a lot. I think that's more podcasts than the average person listens to. So for me, it's very difficult to have a new show break in to that mix. It's just hard. I'm hitting the ceiling of time that I have to listen to shows. So yeah, I'm a double speed guy or more.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think you're past the point of hitting the ceiling here. Yeah. That's crazy.
So, but there are, I think that is the counterexample, right? There are more people who are not like me who have have never opened their podcast app and are just an open field of exploration who will find information or podcasts that meet their needs. And I think that's what we're trying to target here is figuring out where those people are. And not being afraid of the 55 and older demographic, because they've got money and time, which is perfect for podcasters.
Absolutely. Get them made, folks.
Get them made? Is that what you said?
Did that sound like something an old person would say? I was trying to tap into that.
A little bit. It needed a little bit. Get her made. But it also sounded like lick-a-made. And I thought, is that a candy you're talking about? Bottom line is we love podcasting, and we really, I think being somebody who knows how to talk to this demographic, there is a lot of opportunity, particularly opportunity in strategic advertising and being able to really capitalize on this largely untapped market, which is the olds like us.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, I'm already getting my AARP magazines.
I've been getting my AARP magazine since I was 28. Those people are promiscuous.
Yeah, they are.
All right. Well, thanks for hanging out for this brief podcast. Think about the old people. We appreciate you for downloading and listening to this show. We appreciate your time and attention, and we'll see you next time right here on Podcast, a podcast about podcasting from True Story FM.